ever thought about the importance of humanizing people, looking at their behaviors as opposed to identifying or labeling who they are? Layla Hormozi, the marketing mogul, talks about how important it is to humanize people in business. Because when we humanize somebody, we can start to broaden the reality of the situation, get more curious about what's really going on. What are the motivators behind what they're saying or they're doing? Why are they displeased? Where is their pleasure originating from? And in this, we can be more strategic in the way we choose to navigate forward, either with them or away from them. Another interesting spin on the idea of looking at people's behaviors and humanizing them as opposed to identifying and labeling them. When we choose to place somebody in a rigid box and form belief systems and a rigid mindset about who they are, which makes it difficult to pull them out of that box because we've set something in stone energetically here about who we perceive them to be. This perception of them in false light opens up the propensity for demonic forces to come in and claim ownership to that energy. The demonic principalities claim stake to different sins or energies that we might deem negative. They're constantly on the hunt for people that are matching the energy of the frequency to the sins or downgraded energy that the demons are feeding off of. When this energy is in somebody's field, which could be that people are placing labels or identifying them as such, and they might be doing the same to themselves. It's refortifying the energy in their energetic field, then the demons can easily hook into that. And if somebody owns that as who they are and decides that maybe they are a thief, maybe they are a criminal, because after all, that's what other people are telling them, then it's very easy for the demonic principalities to come in and claim ownership to that frequency that they oversee, because now this individual has decided that's a part of their identity. And so when we overlay this onto others or ourselves, we're opening up space for these energies to come in and attack us or start feeding through our energy. And this isn't just about somebody that we're labeling, because when we're doing this to others, we're utilizing judgment and blame. We're possibly activating self-righteousness and piousness, which also opens us up to different demonic forces that feed on that energy as well. Evie Pompouris, former U.S. Secret Service agent, talks about the importance of viewing people's behaviors. When you're viewing behavior, you're also allowing enough malleability that there is an understanding that they can easily change behaviors if they want to. Behavior equals choice, which equals possibility for change. When we identify or label somebody, we run the risk of embedding rigid belief systems about them. We tend to create false narratives both about them and ourselves. It's very easy to say he's a saint or she's a thief, but that's an overlay of an identifier. It's most likely a false belief, because the reality is that he donated 5 hours to the food bank last week even though he had a busy schedule. And she took my lunch out of the fridge yesterday and ate it and then hid the wrappers in the trash so I wouldn't know. These are choices and behaviors that people make for their own reasons and meeting needs, which can easily change in any now moment. It doesn't mean that she's a thief. It just means she made a choice to take my lunch. And it doesn't mean that he's a saint. It's just that he made a choice to help others in need. When we choose to view the reality as opposed to the perception, first of all, we equalize these individuals as same as ourselves. It's humbling and it's helpful to understand that people make choices all the time. Behaviors vacillate constantly. It helps us build a compassion-based perspective around situations and to assess what's really going on so that we can make rational, neutral decisions on how we might choose to engage or remove ourselves from certain individuals and situations. It also opens up a spaciousness for people to change in a way that we might prefer them to. but also for us to be honest about things that they might be doing that just don't sit right with us, and that's their choice. It has nothing to do with us. There's a fantastic Christian concept that I talk about often called divine witnessing. I find divine witnessing to be a very hopeful and compassionate strategy for overcoming the propensity to idealize and devalue individuals. In divine witnessing, it deems that while you're viewing the reality of the situation, you're aware of maybe somebody's downfalls or the things that you really appreciate about this individual. You see the reality for what it is, and you allow that to be the case. In addition, you're simultaneously holding space and celebrating their higher potential as something that you desire for them and know is very possible. So in this, you're opening up a wonderful spaciousness for them to continue to grow and be a better individual, which is helpful for them. In addition, it's helping you because this is how you would want others to treat you, and like attracts like. When we're experiencing identification and labeling, as opposed to looking at somebody's behaviors, which are changeable and malleable, we are now running the risk of being in a situation where we're idealizing and devaluing. When we're in this experience, there's inevitably going to have to be both because energy always seeks a balance. So if we're idealizing somebody and putting them on a pedestal and we're creating a scenario that's not the reality of the situation, we're inevitably setting themselves up for a downfall because there will have to be a balance in the reality. I've been on both sides of this, where both felt and experienced idealization and devaluation, and I've also doled that out to others. And none of these situations in their truth are comfortable, because when we're idealizing somebody, we're placing ourselves in a limerent fantasy type state. We're holding them up to a potential that's not the reality, which means that we're not living in reality. We're moving through cognitive dissonance or a disassociation. And inevitably, when we devalue them because we're starting to see that they're not who we thought they were, or they're making behavioral choices that don't meet our idea of what we wanted them to be, we have to devalue them because it's the balance of the situation. And when we devalue people, both we feel deflated, most likely, justified in our blame, and we're also projecting a very negative, disrespectful energy onto them. Being on the other end of that, experiencing idealization, when somebody puts you on a pedestal, it's very easy to fall into the egocentric experience of love bombing. There's a high and a euphoria to this. It's out of balance energetically from the reality, and we start to feed on how they're treating us as if that is who we are. We believe a false narrative and a fantasy that because they're acting this way towards us, are viewing us in that light, this is our label or identifier. We can get a big head about ourselves. We can start having ideas about ourselves in a grandiose way. And inevitably, when we disappoint this person because they had high potential and expectations for us in a way that wasn't our reality, then they begin to devalue us, which can seem to pull the rug out from under our feet because suddenly somebody that thought we were so amazing and wonderful now feels so horrible about us, who has no respect for us and might be ghosting us or treating us in very difficult and negative ways. This is hurtful, it's painful, and it really plays on people's self-worth and shame. It takes a very strong will to not be affected by experiencing devaluation. So if we choose to look at people's behaviors and humanize them and equal the playing field initially, we can avoid this very unhealthy situation of idealization and devaluation. Another important factor of behavioral observation is that we're doing just that. We're observing what's happening as opposed to perceiving. When we observe what's happening, we can get more curious about the motivations and the triggers behind their behaviors. Because when we humanize somebody and treat them equally, even though we might not be enjoying what they're choosing, we are possibly familiar with the choices they're making. We might inevitably look back to a time where we made these same choices and understand our motivators behind that. We might think about the times where we had regret or remorse for these negative choices or mistakes, and that inevitably we changed because we want to be more moral or ethical, which means that they have the very high potential or possibility of making change. We're open to that, even though it's not wise to expect or assume them to do so. And in addition, if they're making choices in a way that we appreciate and value, then we might be validated in thinking about times where we've also made these similar choices. Or it might motivate us to make better choices because we enjoy what they're up to and we honor that in them. When we choose to view people's behaviors and humanize them, we allow a lot more spaciousness for forgiveness. Forgiveness is imperative when it comes to neutralizing energy. Forgiveness is the most efficient technique to utilize to shift your energy into offensive, out of defensive, to neutralize karma, and to allow yourself to detach from situations and people that you don't want to be connected to. We've all had the experience where we just can't stop thinking or feeling about something or somebody that we don't want to be a part of. But it's like an addiction. There's a compulsion. We can't get away from it. Something triggers us. We think about it. Even if we avoided it for months at a time and changed our location, sometimes it comes back up. It haunts us in a way. And this can be ameliorated through forgiveness. Because when we're having those experiences, our neural pathways have embedded in a way where we're focused on what happened that we did not enjoy. And it can be more extreme than that. We all know this. Forgiveness is an energy that neutralizes the frequency in the field. It allows us to let go of what we're hooking into. If we're still clinging on to feelings and thoughts about a situation, then we're still harboring an unmet need. There's still something that we're wanting from them. It could just be acknowledgement or an apology. But most of us know if there's something that's been lingering, it doesn't mean that you're ever going to receive that acknowledgement or apology. It's much more efficient for you to be able to let it go out of your field. So to be able to embody forgiveness gives us the ability to let go of the tether and the unmet need by meeting our own needs, which means that we're no longer affected by the situation. And a lot of us who have had this experience of shifting out of something that seemed to be terrorizing our mind or emotions into finally the relief of being able to release it knows that this is an invaluable experience. So if you choose to begin to focus on behaviors and humanize people more often than not, then you're going to start to become more objective and observational. You'll learn how your energy shifts from defensive reactivity when you get triggered into more depersonalized neutrality, where you have the ability to observe, get curious, pause, and ask questions and respond appropriately. And when this is our experience, where we might get curious and ask them questions, it might actually do an entire pattern redirect in somebody that's acting in ways that just seem very out of sorts. They might be surprised by it. They might already be in a defensive stance because they're assuming you're also going to react. There is a phenomenal mastery in being able to be neutral and calm and curious as opposed to moving into defense mechanisms. This can be a very difficult thing to embody and master, and it's difficult because it's so extremely invaluable. There's something amazing when you're able to be in your neutrality and your strong self-will and self-love. It shows that you know that whatever this person is bringing towards you has absolutely nothing to do with you and does not reflect onto you any lack of self-worth or self-judgment. It doesn't throw you off course because you're not personalizing it about you. And that shows a lot about one's character and self-love. If you want to check out my work, chloe-hudson.com.